After the last video I made going over one trade candidate from every NHL team, a lot of you guys were asking for a deal or no deal video to follow that up. So that is exactly what we're going to do today. This is the second of the season, and I hope to get at least a couple more in before the deadline. As always, you guys absolutely killed it with the mock trades, over 180 comments on the post, so huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a trade. If you guys enjoy this type of NHL content and you're not already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Trying to hit 100,000 subscribers in 2023, and if you want more content from me just in shorter form, be sure to check out my second channel, which is linked down below. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. The first mock trade we have comes from Onink, who says to the Avalanche, Bo Horvat and a 2023 third, to Vancouver, Samuel Girard, a 2024 first, a 2025 second, and Sampo Ranta, and goes on to give some reasoning saying, I think that it is really obvious that the Avs need a solid second line center, and I think Bo would fit that role perfectly. Also, I think the Avalanche would not want to trade their 2023 first just in case shit hits the fan and they are unable to get to the playoffs. I also think that the Avs should try to sign Bo for the future. This is a great mock trade in my opinion. I think that Bo Horvat is almost exactly what the Colorado Avalanche need. I think he would be a perfect fit as their number 2 center, and based off of the comments Jim Rutherford made in the press conference he held a few days ago, I think Samuel Girard kind of fits the mold of a player the Canucks could be looking for. Jim Rutherford said that he's not necessarily just looking for draft picks, guys that'll help with the team in, 4 to 5 years. He wants young, already established NHLers that may be in need of a change of scenery, and Samuel Girard is having a really rough year, and this is a guy who, at his peak, we have seen what he's capable of. He is capable of being a fantastic, puck-moving, top 4 defenseman. He's only 24 years old. I don't see any reason why he can't get back to that level. He has a cap hit of $5 million through 2026-27, which I think is a solid contract if he can bounce back, and along with Girard, you're getting a first, a second, and Sampo Ranta, who, there might still be something there. He's 22 years old, former 3rd round pick, has decent numbers in the AHL this season, but he's more so just a throw-in. So overall, I think this is a really solid mock trade. I think it makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and say deal to this one. Also, the money almost works out perfectly as Bo Horvat and Samuel Girard have very similar cap hits. The one thing I probably would change if I was submitting this mock trade is make that 2024 first, a 2023 first, just to give the Canucks a little bit more value. The next mock trade we have comes from Brando, who says the Kings receive Jacob Chychrun, Coyotes receive Sean Walker, and a 2023 first round pick. I think Jacob Chychrun to the LA Kings just makes too much sense. If I had to name the top 3 best fits for him, the Kings would definitely be in there. Still relatively young, fits the LA Kings timeline, wouldn't just be a rental, and he fits their need of kind of a stud defenseman on the left side. Obviously on the right side they have Drew Doughty, they have Brandt Clark coming in likely next season, so I definitely think there is a deal there that could work out between the Kings and Coyotes for Chychrun. However, for this particular mock trade, I am going to say no deal just because I don't think the value is there for the Coyotes. It's been heavily reported that the Coyotes have a really high asking price, and I think they should. Jacob Chychrun is a premium asset. It's reported that the Coyotes want 2 first-round picks and either a solid prospect or a young NHL player, so they'll be getting one of those things in this mock trade, but I'm not really sure how interested they'd be in Sean Walker. He's going to be heading into the final year of his deal next season. He's a fine 5'6" defenseman, but nothing really more than that. If there were to be a deal made between the Kings and Coyotes for Chychrun, I feel like if you're the Kings, it has to start and be centered around a first-round pick, or likely multiple first-round picks, or maybe a first and 2 seconds, and maybe prospect Alex Turcotte. 5th overall pick from 2019, has yet to crack the LA Kings roster full-time, has put up solid numbers in the American Hockey League over the past 2 seasons, and it's likely going to be pretty difficult for Alex Turcotte to crack the LA Kings roster full-time anytime soon, because if you look at their depth chart at the center position, I mean, he's behind Kopitar, he's behind Philip Deneau, I'd say he's probably behind Byfield, Rasmus Kupari I'd even throw in there, Blake Lizotte. The Kings do have some real solid depth at the center position, so I definitely think Alex Turcotte could be an intriguing guy to kind of center this package around. This next mock trade comes from Matthew Pittman, who says Vegas trades Laurent Brossoit and a 2023 second and a 4th to the Winnipeg Jets for Ville Heinola. For the Jets, they know what they are getting with Brossoit, especially with Riddick's subpar play, and Vegas gets the defenseman that they could use right now with the likes of Theodore and Martinez being out. This is definitely a pretty clever mock trade, but I am going to go ahead and say no deal from the side of the Winnipeg Jets, just because I don't know how much of an upgrade Laurent Brossoit really is over David Riddick at this point, if an upgrade at all. Yeah, Riddick has been subpar, but I mean, Laurent Brossoit's been playing in the American Hockey League this season. He wasn't the greatest in 24 games for Vegas last year, so I think if you're the Jets, you probably just ride out this season with Riddick as the backup, because for a team like Winnipeg, who has a Vezina caliber goaltender like Connor Hellebuyck playing as well as he is this season, I don't think the backup goaltending position matters all that much. When healthy, Connor Hellebuyck is going to be playing like 80-85% of the games, and when we get down to, the postseason and everything, obviously he's going to be playing every game. I know it has been reported that Ville Heinola would like to be traded to a team where he'd get an opportunity to play more consistently, so them trading Heinola definitely makes sense here. I just don't think this particular trade would make a lot of sense for Winnipeg. The next mock trade we have comes from Jim the Swede 9844, who says Edmonton gets Gus Nyquist, 2.5 mil retained to make the money even. Columbus gets Jesse Puljujarvi and a 2023 second round pick. There was a lot more to this comment, with Jim really giving his explanation as to why he thinks this would work, but it just wouldn't fit on the screen, so I apologize for cutting out some of your comment. But I'm a massive fan of this mock trade. I think it makes all the sense in the world, so I am going to go ahead and say deal to this one. I said in the video for one trade candidate from every team when I was talking about Gus Nyquist that I think Edmonton would be a pretty good fit, and I think that's a guy that they could target. Obviously, Ken Holland has that connection with Nyquist from their time together in Detroit. I think Nyquist would add some much needed versatility to the Oilers' middle six. He's kind of like a Swiss Army knife forward who can play on really any of the four lines. He's also a guy that can be useful on both special teams, and obviously we know the situation with Jesse Puljujarvi just really hasn't worked out this season for him in Edmonton, and it's likely time for a change of scenery. And what better team to go to than the Columbus Blue Jackets, where he could get the opportunity to play with a guy like Patrick Laine, who he had amazing chemistry with for Finland back when they played together in the World Juniors. I honestly think this trade might even work out better as just a 1-for-1 swap, Puljujarvi for Nyquist. Adding the second round pick along with Puljujarvi, I feel like that might be a little bit too much to give up for Nyquist at this point in his career. But I mean, there is some people that view Jesse Puljujarvi as like a negative asset right now because of his $3 million cap hit and his production this season, so I don't think anyone would be too mad about this. And with that 2.5 mil retained, it works perfectly. 3 mil in, 3 mil out for both teams. So again, really like this mock trade. I'm going to go ahead and say deal. This next mock trade is definitely a juicy one from Sam Bourne, who says to the New York Rangers, Timo Meier and a third rounder in 2023, to the Sharks, Alexis Lafreniere, Zach Jones, 2 seconds, one being this year and one being in 2025. The Rangers are a team that seem to be in the sweepstakes for every big name player available leading up to the deadline. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they have some very intriguing assets that they would likely be open to parting ways with, one of which potentially being Lafreniere. Obviously, it hasn't came out that the Rangers are actively shopping him, but it has been reported that after he was healthy scratched, teams have definitely been checking in and are interested in the Rangers' plans with Lafreniere. The Rangers are a great team as is, but I think they're one solidified top 6 winger away from being a legit Stanley Cup threat, and that's what they would be getting here. Timo Meier is a legit, not just top 6 winger, I will say top line winger. He's a point per game player this season, is on pace to score 40 plus goals. I definitely think there's a fit there, and ideally if you're the Rangers and you're gonna go make a big splash and potentially trade one of Lafreniere or Kakko, your young players and draft picks, I think it would make sense to go out and get a guy who wouldn't just be a rental. Timo Meier is 26 years old, is going to be an RFA at season's end, and yes, it would be a nightmare of a cap situation for the New York Rangers to try and get a deal done with Timo Meier, especially given what his qualifying offer has to be, but he'll be an RFA, so it's not like they'll have to worry about rushing to get an extension done before he hits the open market, because he won't be on the open market. With him being an RFA, you'll have time to try to figure things out. I know Rangers fans are almost like 50-50 split on if they think they should move on from Lafreniere or keep him, but in my opinion, I think this is a really good mock trade. I'm going to go ahead and say deal to this. The Rangers are currently in their Stanley Cup contending window, and although it looks like they're set up to sustain this winning for quite some time, you never know what could happen. I think it makes sense for the Rangers to swing for the fences, so again, I'm going to say deal to this one. Like, I know Lafreniere is still way too young to write off at this point. If everyone was writing off Alexis Lafreniere, obviously this is a trade that the Sharks probably wouldn't accept, but I definitely still think there's a really good player there, although I'm not sure if he's ever going to be the kind of top line winger that Timo Meier is right now. But then on top of getting a guy who was just a first overall pick in 2020, you're getting a young defender in Zach Jones, and then 2 second round picks, so I think that's pretty solid value. And now for the final mock trade of today's episode of Deal or No Deal. This one comes from David, who says to Calgary, Brock Besser, to Vancouver, Milan Lucic, a first and a third. Lucic is on the last year of his deal, is from Vancouver, and Brock needs a change. Calgary needs a solid winger for our second line, and the Nucks are in full-blown rebuild mode. I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that last part, although I think they probably should be heading towards that direction. Rutherford views this as more of a retooling and wants young, already established NHL players in return for some of the core guys that could be on their way out. So although I can see why this would make sense, Lucic going to Vancouver and Besser coming in, the money would almost work perfectly. Obviously Obviously, Lucic is overpaid, but the deal's up at the end of the season, so it's basically Brock Besser for the first and the third round pick, which honestly, for the way Brock Besser has played this season, I don't think that's terrible value for the Canucks at all. However, I'm going to say no deal to this one because I don't think there's any way in hell that Milan Lucic would waive his no move clause to go to the Vancouver Canucks. I know he's from Vancouver, but given the current state of the team, I just don't think that would make any sense for him at this point in his career. He wants to contend, and although the Calgary Flames haven't really lived up to expectations this season, they're a lot closer to contending than Vancouver is. Also, these teams are divisional rivals, and teams in the same division oftentimes don't like to make big trades with each other, so for all those reasons, I am going to say no deal to this one. So that is going to wrap up this episode of NHL Deal or No Deal. If you guys want to see a few more of these before the trade deadline, then be sure to drop a like on this video and let me know down below in the comments that you enjoyed. Like I said at the beginning, huge thank you to every single one of you who took the time to come up with a mock trade and leave it on the post. Even the ones that don't get featured in the video, I know it can get frustrating, but just know I read every single one and I appreciate all of you guys. And lastly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year long, be sure to hit that subscribe button and I'll talk to you all soon.